One of the things I've learned as traffic safety guy is just how broad in scope traffic safety is. In fact, the United Nations passed back now almost 7 years ago a resolution to make this decade from 2010 to 2020 the decade of road safety. The reason the United Nations passed that resolution is because the importance in recognizing that traffic crashes and fatalities are one of the leading causes of death and injury for all ages. It's a recognition that we can do more and we can save lives. It has impact on no matter what age you are, no matter what economic level you're at. You have the risk of being killed or seriously injured anywhere in the globe, which obviously means, based on all of this, that traffic safety is a universal problem. It doesn't happen just in one place or one country or one type of individual. It's important that all of us take steps to be proactive in how we drive and how we communicate that message to our friends and our family. One of the things that corporations are finding in the United States is that they're being sued because of injuries and fatalities that happen where they weren't proactive enough. But what we're finding, and just forgetting about lawsuits, is corporations that are trying to take the best interest of their employees into account, to take into account the citizens that they interact with on a daily basis, where their employees are driving and putting other citizens at risk. The corporations and companies are taking proactive steps to ensure that their employees are being safe drivers, not talking on a cell phone while driving, getting enough rest so they're not having drowsy driving situations and putting others at risk, where they're not allowed to drink and drive. And so corporations are finding the benefits to ensuring that their employees are safe drivers on the road, which ensures the safety of the employees and ensures the safety of the citizens of that particular area. One of the growing phenomena that we're seeing across the globe is distracted driving. And while the term itself encompasses a large number of activities, everything from drinking water while driving, eating while driving, turning it down the radio could be a form of distracted driving. The most common thing that we talk about nowadays is cell phones and how people are using a cell phone while driving, which puts them at greater risk of a crash, whether or not it's hands-free or not. And as cell phones grow and proliferate around the world, we're seeing this as a problem that's increasing for the traffic safety as well. And the easy solution, and I say that somewhat in jest, is to turn the phone off and put it down. That is the easy solution, but for some reason it seems so very difficult for some individuals. But that's what we need to do, recognize and share that message of risk that's being created. Distracted driving and using a cell phone is just as bad as if you had been drinking and driving and had too much alcohol in your system or used too much drugs. They're both equivalent. Your mind is not working properly while you're driving, and thus putting yourself at a significantly greater risk of being in a crash. When the United Nations passed its resolution, the Decade of Action for Road Safety, they looked at certain categories or certain topics that were recognized as being global issues that had to be addressed everywhere. One of those is drink driving, drunk driving, impaired driving, whatever term you want to use, is when you've had too much alcohol and then try to drive down the road. It's now, of course, being expanded to include not just alcohol, but other drugs that are out there as well. And it's a problem that, depending on the country, exists in some format. In countries where alcohol is almost seen as a significant benefit to the country because of the dollars it may bring in, the tourism it may bring in, to a country where it bans alcohol and doesn't allow drinking, it's a problem in both countries. It doesn't matter whether or not it's allowed in great form or not allowed. Drink driving still happens and still is causing deaths. And that's why the Justice Speakers International is really trying to take steps here to make sure that you understand the risk, that you share that message with your friends, your family, and we're ready and willing to help out and provide the information and the message to increase your community's awareness, your country's awareness, and understand just that you can make a difference here. When looking at concerns of drink driving and how to address it, one of the things that has to be looked at and addressed, or at least recognized, is how the country itself considers alcohol and drinking. Or have they taken it the next step and beyond that to recognize it's more important for the safety of the public? For example, there's many countries now you're finding where alcohol was it's allowed, there's no problem, no concern being used, but there's a recognition that if you've been drinking, if you had one or two drinks, that's one or two drinks that could put you at risk of causing harm, and therefore we're going to stop. You won't drive. If you're at a friend's house, that friend will have a spot for you to stay. If you're at a restaurant, that restaurant can very easily provide transportation to get you home. But there's an elevated recognition of the risks that are created, versus when you get into some countries where alcohol is freely consumed and believed to be almost a social lubricant in many respects. And there they go ahead and drive and put everybody at risk. In the United States, we used to have that problem. We still have a huge problem with drink driving, but we've at least said it's no more one more for the road. That has taken time to change. Other countries are working on that and changing it as well, but it takes time, but it takes effort, and it can be done. To address drink driving, there is a number of things that have to happen. There has to be recognition and change of society in many respects of providing for it, acceptance. But it also requires law enforcement to take the step and move up and be proactive in stopping that. And then when it gets to the courts, for the courts to take more action. Courts can be very proactive in how they respond. And what they first need to really look at is the person in front of them. This is a person that's going to learn from that arrest, learn from this conviction, learn from the sentence that will be imposed by the court. Many times we might refer to that person as a social drinker. If they're like that kind of a person where they made that mistake and have been gone through the system of the justice system, that can get their attention. But if they haven't, or if they're addicted to alcohol or other substance abuse issues, now the courts can be even more proactive and develop what's called drink driving courts or DWI courts, impaired driving courts. There's a number of names for them, sobriety courts, but all of them mean basically the same thing, where a team of individuals focus on that individual, the person in front of them, the person that's been arrested, and provide a very intensive program to address the underlying issues of the addiction and change that person's behavior. So the courts can address it if it's a social drinker, they can address it if it's a person that's addicted, and still have the same results, successful law-abiding citizen. One of the important things that Justice Speakers International we hope to do is provide you with the information, with the knowledge, understanding of what it means to drink too much and then to put yourself at risk by driving. And it's one of those things recognizing that no matter where you're at, what country you're at, in a country that has fantastic transportation opportunities so that you don't have to drive and that you can take a train, a subway, a metro, other types of transit to get from point A to point B and not put others at risk. Or if you're in a country where that's not available, but if you have the knowledge, the understanding, the awareness of what it does to you and what you are doing to put others at risk, you can be proactive and take the right steps and the right actions to ensure that before it happens, before you sit behind that wheel, you're not a risk to others by having consumed too much alcohol.